If you're watching this video, you're probably thinking about studying in Japan. That's perfect, because today I'll tell you everything I did to get into the University of Tokyo, Japan's most prestigious university, and will give you some general tips and insights on the things I did to make it happen. With that being said, I will mainly talk about the University of Tokyo, as this is the university that I'm currently studying at. However, since I also applied to many other universities, I will also give you a more general overview of what to expect when you're applying to a Japanese university and what to look out for. I hope you can learn from my experience, whether you are trying to get into the University of Tokyo or any other Japanese university. So let's get right into it. First of all, I have a few points that I would like to mention that you should generally consider when you're trying to study in Japan. First of all, I can safely say it's actually not that hard to study in Japan if you really want to. One of the reasons is that in the past few years, more and more foreigners have been accepted into Japanese universities. For example, in my department at the University of Tokyo, around 30% of all students are foreigners. Sounds good, right? Also, of course, as a foreigner, or at least as a Western foreigner, you stand out very easily. And if you then additionally speak very good Japanese, you stand out very easily. And this is not only, of course, in everyday life, but also in applications. Say, for example, if you're applying as a Westerner and you have a JLPT N1 certificate, then that really makes you stand out. So this is just an advantage that you have from the beginning on. Of course, I also said that there are a lot of foreigners coming to Japanese universities in the past few years, but most of them are from other Asian countries. And so, as I said, you will very much stand out, which might be both positive and negative in some cases. But for your application, this is definitely positive. And this also leads me kind of to my next point, which is, so most of the foreigners that actually study in Japan study in English. And if you're applying for a major that is conducted in Japanese, you will have less competition from overseas, and that will make you stand out even more, of course. And I can tell you from experience, even if you pass the N1, there will be times where you don't feel as confident with your abilities, or where you feel like you don't really know if you can really study in full Japanese, even if you have the N1. And that's totally fine. I also have those moments. But at least at graduate level studies, it's allowed for you to, for example, submit your homework in English. Or some professors even use English slides. That of course varies, I'd say, depending on the professor and also the university, but at least at the University of Tokyo, even if you're studying in Japanese, there will be enough support or there will be enough opportunity to use English. You won't have to fear failing your studies because you can't understand Japanese, if you have at least the N1, and this is the requirement that most universities want fulfilled from the applicants. So this is a hard requirement. That being said, of course, one thing that is really rewarding is when you kind of notice that you're getting better, that you're improving at Japanese, because of course when you're studying in Japanese, you are surrounded by Japanese every day, and you will improve, and it can only get better. Again, my main point is that if you can speak Japanese, then I would encourage you to study in Japanese, because you have less competition from other foreigners. And again, you stand out more. Also, one thing that you should note before you apply is that a lot of universities expect you to prove that you have enough money in the bank to safely study in Japan. The exact amount depends on whether you are studying at a public or private university. In my case, at the University of Tokyo, I needed to submit a bank certificate that stated that I have more than 2 million yen in the bank. This could also be money from your parents or other relatives, but you needed to prove that you have at least that much money. Also, be prepared for a lot of paperwork, but that's another thing. So if you have then decided that you want to study in Japan and decided whether you want to study in English or Japanese, you can start by looking for universities you want to apply for. First of all, of course, there are a lot of universities in Japan, and also, of course, a lot of really, really good universities apart from the University of Tokyo. So I would recommend you to apply for more than one, just in case you get rejected by one or the other. Good, then let's get into the points you should take care of when you want to apply. First of all, Japanese universities, and especially the really good ones like the University of Tokyo, really expect high grades. When I did a semester abroad during my undergraduate studies at Kyoto University, I was required to have at least a GPA of 3.0, American GPA. And I guess that differs from university to university. Some universities don't even give out those numbers, like the University of Tokyo. Of course, grades are not everything here, but they are really important. Another thing I can really encourage you to do is try to go to Japan at least once before you do this. Of course, this depends on whether you have the opportunity to do so. But first of all, you will not only see if this is really something for you, but you will also have something to talk about or some motivation that you can mention when you're applying for a university. Because that's another thing that Japanese universities really want to know from foreign applicants. Why Japan? And also why this university? This is, for example, one thing that I was asked very detailed in my interview. When you're applying, you will almost surely need to submit a research plan. This is something that was also really hard for me to do. It's because I never did something like that. And of course, at least in Germany, where I did my undergraduate studies, you don't do any research. And of course, you have your thesis and all that, but that's a bit different, I'd say. And then having to write such a report was really a pain. That's why I would really recommend you to look into current research issues in advance and kind of find some issues that you find interesting personally and that you can write about. They don't expect you to present them a perfect solution to this problem in your research plan, of course. But I think they more or less want to see if you know what the current problems are and what things you would do to study these kind of problems. Also, you will need to submit recommendation letters, almost surely. Usually, universities expect at least 1 or 2, maybe 3, but 3 is really rare. Yeah, that's why I would recommend you to, during your undergraduate studies, to maybe get a good connection to 1 or 2 professors who would then write this recommendation letter for you. Some universities actually also accept recommendation letters of previous companies that you did internships at, for example, if it has something to do with the field that you want to study. But usually it will be professors, recommendation letters of professors of your university that you were at during your undergraduate studies. So the next point, the most important point I'd say I want to tell you is that universities conduct online meetings about the application process and all kinds of stuff regarding admissions. And I would definitely encourage you to join such online meeting and inform yourself when these meetings are held, because not only will you get valuable information regarding the application process, but you will also usually get to know the professors. Usually what it is like is that you have a general meeting in the beginning where like general tips and all that stuff for applications are given. And then afterwards you have several meetings where each professor introduces himself and his lab, and you can kind of then join the meeting of your choice and have a talk also with them. And this is such a great way to get into contact with the people at the university before you even apply. I would definitely use that, and you can ask a lot of questions. And I think, the meetings are comparatively small. Of course, the general meeting is there are a lot of people in the general meeting, but the important meeting, really, the meeting where the professors introduce themselves, they are quite small. I'd say around 5 to 20 people in my case, and it's a really good opportunity. Also, when you apply, you will probably, no matter if you study in Japanese or in English, you will need an English test. Usually universities here rely on TOEFL or TOEIC, I think. But with TOEFL, you are definitely on the safe side. I have not seen a single university that doesn't accept TOEFL. And depending on what you want to study, usually you have entrance exams, but some departments also refrain from conducting those entrance exams and instead let you take the GRE. Yeah, so I would definitely look also into that and prepare for these tests as well. I mean, of course, if you're from an English-speaking country, then the TOEFL won't be hard for you. But anyway, yeah, the GRE definitely needs some preparation, I'd say. Also, each university has different rules on the expiration dates of those tests. For example, the University of Tokyo wanted me to submit a TOEFL certificate that is at most 2 years old. So this actually matches the expiration date of any TOEFL test. But for the GRE, I had to do the GRE, and this had to be at most 1 year from the application. If you still have time until you study in Japan, I would recommend you to look at the admission procedures of previous years, because those admission procedures will only change slightly over the years, and then you can get kind of a quick glance of what will probably be expected of you. Now, for the application process, it usually consists of 3 or 4 parts, depending on how you want to look at it. You will definitely have a document screening where you submit all your grades of your undergraduate studies and everything related to documents, so TOEFL scores and all that. And after the document screening, you will have a written exam. As I said, there are some departments that do not conduct written exams because they rely on external exams, for example. As I said, the GRE is one example of that. Afterwards, you will have interviews. Most of the times, I think, when you have not had an exam at the university, you will have interviews where they kind of asked you, again, a lot about why Japan, why this university, but also a bit about like technical stuff regarding your studies, but mostly regarding your motivation. And then shortly after the interviews, you will get your results. One tip that I can give you if you have written exams at the university is learn with the exercises from the previous years. So it's called kakomon in Japanese. So basically, Japanese universities give out the questions of previous exams on their websites so that students can learn with them. And I would definitely use these questions because they are from a setting similar to what you can expect in your exam. You will definitely need to study them before you before you start applying, because usually it takes some time to learn this stuff or get used to the question setting. Because if you only start after you know you have passed the document screening, you will not make it. Because usually the written exam is like at most a month after the document screening results are published. So you don't have that much time to study. And for the interviews, it's really hard to prepare. But as I said, you will probably have to talk about your motivation and maybe some technical stuff, but not a lot. Okay, so let me now talk about a concrete timeline that I would give you if you want to apply to university, or that I have employed when I applied. I looked through the programs and universities that I wanted to apply to during my second to last semester during my undergraduate studies. So my undergraduate studies were 6 semesters. So in my 5th semester, I kind of looked around what programs and what universities there are, and then decided which ones I want to apply to. Also, when you do this, be sure to keep track of important dates, because at that point in time, probably these dates will already be published on the websites of the university. Yeah, and as I said, I looked at the past admission requirements and all that stuff. Yeah, then I also started learning with the kakomon, as I said previously, with the previous questions in my 5th semester. And then in the 6th semester, I actually applied. So in your last semester of your undergraduate studies, you will apply. You have to apply if you want to directly study afterwards. But yeah, basically once the applications are open, you just start applying.